Hi, Peter Charles here, and today we're going to look at the new Fujifilm XS20 camera. I just got it recently, but had it about a week. And it comes with the 16 to 50 millimeter kit lens. That's an f2.8 to f4.8 aperture. So let's take a look at my first impressions of this camera lens. Like I said, I've had this about a week, and I've had an opportunity to use it a few times. And I went out today to make a few shots of some tractors, old tractors, a little bit of bird photography and a bit of insect photography, that sort of stuff, to get a feel for the camera. And a couple of things I can say about it right off the bat that are really, really important is, believe it or not, it has basically the same menu system as the XH2. I mean, it's a mini XH2 in reality. I mean, it's got a 26 megapixel sensor instead of a 40, and it's lacking a few other physical features that are on the XH2. But when you look at the menu system, actually the video menu system on this actually has a few more options than the XH2. It's clearly been pushed heavily towards video, and that I think is one of the key aspects of this camera, is that it is much more of a video camera than a lot of other Fujifilm offerings. For example, some of the new things that they've got is, and I'm using this on my Sony here, that I've got a Sony ZV-E10 showing you the showcase mode. And if you put the command dial on the XS20 to Vlog, you get the same capability. So this has clearly been aimed at not only regular still photographers and videographers, but also vloggers as well. This camera is a very, very adept vlogging camera. And it has the headphone jack and the microphone jack that is so important if you're going to be doing this sort of work. So in previous cameras, you had to have a little dongle that you pushed into the USB-C port in order to get a headphone jack. Not anymore in this one. It has the headphone jack built right in, right there. So that's a big plus if you're into video. So really, my first impressions of this is that Fujifilm has really done a great job of pushing this camera towards video and making it much more video-centric. Now, I've shot some studio stuff with this camera, and I've shot video, I should say, and I've gone out and done some stills out, as I say, in some old antique tractors and some bird and insect photography. So I've had a chance to use it both in video and in stills. And the autofocus is a big improvement. If you haven't been happy with Fujifilm autofocus in the past, I think you'll like this. It has the same object tracking as the XH2, and it works just as well as the XH2, and we'll see some images in a few minutes that'll show how well it does. In my studio, I would not generally use cameras on autofocus. I didn't trust autofocus well enough to allow me to use it because they did tend to hunt every once in a while. And so I always operated them on manual mode. In fact, when I had my X-T2 cameras in the studio, I put old film manual focus lenses on them. This I trust. I use this on autofocus in the studio, and it's fine. And it doesn't hunt. It keeps focus on me, or if I put something in front of the camera, even when I'm not using that product priority mode, I can still put something in front of the camera and then pull it back, and it refocuses on my face very, very quickly. So it's a much more reliable video tool than some of the older Fujifilm cameras. Say the XS10 or the XT3, some of those, I mean, the tendency to hunt, or to just lose the subject. The focus tracking on this, lovely. Can't complain at all. As I say, I'll put up some shots right now, and we'll take a look at what I did, just a few, to give you a sample. And these were all shot this morning. And I shot them with my 70-300. And man, does it make a difference with this lens. It focuses very, very fast with this lens. And it doesn't exhibit some of the problems I've had in the past with the older bodies. That lens had a habit of locking up the autofocus if you're focusing close, and then you shifted to another subject, it wouldn't focus on the next subject. It stayed locked until you pointed at a distant subject, and then it would free itself up. It just did that maybe once every 20 times or 30 times, but it was there. I had no occurrence of that whatsoever this morning. So I was able to take a lot of shots, and I can't tell the difference in the bird mode between these two cameras. The other thing it does that is taken from the XH2 is these custom modes that are available. In older cameras, you could only set them up for still photography. In the XH2, you can set them up for both stills and video, and it's true of this one too. You can set them up for stills and video. There's 4 of them on here, and what I've done is, since I also have the XH2, the first 4 positions on this camera are identical to the first 4 positions on this camera. So C1 to C4 are the same, and I can, keep track of what I'm doing. So for example, C4 in this camera and that camera are my studio settings. C2 are bird photography. So that's very handy that you can do both video and still photography on the custom modes, which wasn't possible before on a lot of the older cameras. As far as the lens is concerned, super fast focusing. It's very quiet. It's got an aperture ring without markings, which is common on Fujifilm zoom lenses that have variable aperture. 58mm filter, which is very common. Comes with a nice lens hood, and everything, all the controls in here are lovely and smooth. Lots of resistance, but very, very smooth. Short throw on the zoom, and it's internal zooming. You can see it doesn't change when you zoom, which is, oh, I love internal zooming. Give all my zoom lenses internal zooming, I'd be a happy camper. We have the fully articulating stream, so that's great. We've got a viewfinder, and a lot of little cameras, like the camera that's taking this video, doesn't have a viewfinder, and that can get very frustrating at times. This one is a viewfinder, not the greatest viewfinder in the world, but it's there, you got one. You've got some other, they made the dials a bit bigger, I think, than the old XS10. You've got the Q button and the ISO button, quite easy. You've got shutter release, these 2 buttons here, and your dial, which controls. I usually use it for exposure compensation. The front dial, let's say if I'm aperture priority, shutter priority, I've got the front dial for that, and the back dial is my exposure compensation. Very, very handy to use. Button layout's nice and simple, so you don't get confused with that. Nice, plain, straightforward layout, and it works beautifully well. As I say, and this is a small, light package to boot. Okay, let's take a look at the results I was getting from the camera and the 16 to 15mm lens. I took a visit to some antique tractors and just took pictures of various details of the tractors, just having fun. And I let the camera go on aperture priority, and basically let the camera do its thing beyond that, using exposure compensation where necessary. I also wanted to try out the lens and the camera in sort of more of a close-up scenario. I mean, this isn't macro photography, but I want to see how close it could get. I'm surprised how close I could actually get. I could get some pretty good details, especially at 50mm. Now, I wanted to test out the tracking capabilities of the autofocus. I was using my 70 to 300mm lens, and you can see it was able to pick up birds from quite a distance. It was able to pick up birds in deep foliage, surprisingly well at times. And generally speaking, it became quite a pleasant experience to use. I would say it was easily the equal of the XH2 in its ability to pick up birds, and maybe even a little bit better. I mean, the green heron was shot through foliage, and it worked out just fine, so I can't complain there at all. There was another bird where it's ridiculous how it was able to pick it up. I mean, it was hidden behind leaves and branches, and it still found the outline of that bird and focused on it. So I've got to say the object tracking of it works very well. And the other thing, if you have a winged insect, the bird feature does track winged insects, both this moth and also this dragonfly. So, providing the insect has wings that the object tracking can see, it'll pick up on it. So if you're in the market for a mid-range camera, and you don't need some exotic piece like this. I would suggest the XS20. It's a big jump up, especially if you're into video. It's a big jump up from previous cameras. So check it out. The Fujifilm XS20. Cheers.